Good evening, welcome to The Big Fight. I'm Vishnu Shom. Well, the big focus that we have today is on the collapse of Yes Bank, the Yes Bank meltdown, perhaps not a collapse just yet. Are the government's assurances to customers of the bank enough to reassure them? Before I introduce our distinguished panelists tonight, the RBI has restricted withdrawals from Yes Bank to just 50,000 rupees a person. The crisis at Yes Bank marks the first such instance involving a new age lender in the private sector. The board of the bank has been superseded by the central bank, a decision taken after serious issues were raised about corporate governance issues and a sharply deteriorating financial situation. Bank customers are aghast at the development, and the timing of the move comes when there are significant strains already on the economy and investor sentiment for a host of reasons. Our panelists tonight debate what the collapse of Yes Bank means and what this is a part of in the broader economic context. But the question that everybody really wants to know is, why exactly did Yes Bank collapse? And so let's just run through a couple of those key points on the reasons for the collapse of the bank. Firstly, the exposure of Yes Bank to stressed corporates, and this was in fact mentioned by the Finance Minister, Nirmala Sitharaman. Groups such as the Anil Ambani Group, the SL Group, Vodafone and IL&FS pre-2014, she said, is a reason why this has all gone terribly wrong for Yes Bank. A weak compliance structure, wrong asset classification, risky credit decisions, allegations of insider trading are all reasons why she believes that have contributed to the mess in Yes Bank today. And the point being mentioned by the Finance Minister was that from 2018 onwards, in fact 2017 onwards, the Reserve Bank of India and the government had taken note of the fact that there were problems at Yes Bank. From 2018 onwards, there was a full-fledged effort at oversight, at trying to keep tabs on just what was going wrong. Action was taken against the promoter of the bank. But by November 2019, it appeared that despite the best efforts of the bank, there would be no foreign equity or any other equity coming in, and then these steps which have been taken now. All of the steps, the government is very clear to mention, are in a finite time period. Beyond 30 odd days, things should work out once again for those who stand to lose the most, and that is basic depositors in the bank. But that's an overall introduction of the situation. I'm going to introduce my panelists. Sanchita Mukherjee, Senior Private Wealth Manager, thanks very much for being with us. Amitabh Dubey, Policy Coordinator and a political at the Congress Party and a political analyst. We'll be joined by Gurcharan Das, the economist momentarily. Bishwajit Bhattacharya, former country head of India International Banking at ANZ Grindlays. Madan Sabnavis, the chief economist at Care Ratings, joins us, as also the former director of the Reserve Bank of India, Vipin Malik. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us. The first part of this show is called The First Punch. We give you 1 minute to summarize some of your thoughts before we begin the big fight. Sanchita, to you first.
Thank you, Vishnu. See, I think if one were to look at this entire issue, I think the move by the government was a very sharp move. And as per me, it was very timely, because the primary intent of the government in this situation was to keep Yes Bank as a going concern. The move was done purely from the interest of depositors, so that there's not a run on the bank money. A run on the bank money situation is a very, very grim situation, right? So I think they more or less managed to avert this kind of a crisis, and it's kept it as a going concern. SBI has stepped in to take 49%, so there'll be close to around, my understanding is 2,500 crores of cash infusion and a 49% stake, which will have the capping of the equity share for SBI at close to around 10 rupees. That's 2 rupees face value with 8 rupees premium. Now, a lot of our esteemed panelists here might argue on the timing, saying that why wasn't this done earlier? So that might be a question that can come up for debate, and I'm happy to discuss that. My only thing is, here when we are taking a very objective perspective of a very large bank. Let's understand it's a private sector enterprise.
Okay, I'll interrupt you there. You've got 1 second. I took away 2 seconds
Sure.
from your time. Anyway, Amitabh, go ahead.
Vishnu, the finance minister's comments underline once again that she and her government are more interested in pinning blame on previous governments than actually doing anything during their 6 years in office, particularly in the financial sector, where their approach has been far short of what's needed to be done. All of the cases she mentioned of bad loans went downhill during this government's tenure.
Yeah.
And this is yet another example of it. As far as the bailout plan is concerned, one thing that everyone, your viewers should understand is that the equity value of this bank is almost zero. So the question is, why is SBI being forced to inject at least 2,500 crores and up to 12,000 crores of its own equity to prop this bank up? What is needed is a bailout for depositors, not for creditors and not for shareholders, using money that belongs A, to taxpayers, and B, and this is an important point, to minority shareholders in State Bank of India, whose money is now being used to bail out Yes Bank. So, and this is potentially in violation of SEBI rules. This has to be explored. But a government that is looking to disinvest 2.1 lakh crores of equity cannot go around punishing minority investors in this manner.
Okay. Mr. Bhattacharya, your 1 minute, sir.
You see, it's very important to sustain the confidence of the depositors in this crisis. And banks have failed in the past. We have the example of Global Trust Bank. We have other examples, Bank of Credit and Commerce International, which was taken over by State Bank. Banks will fail in future if the manpower which is running India's largest industry for socio-economic development are not up to the mark. May I just say that this will be a test case. The announcements which have been made and the manner in which RBI has acted so far are on the right track, but talks don't count for anything.
Okay.
What matters is the performance, and if this experiment to bail out each and every depositor
Sir, your time is
fails,
Yes, finished your
then
sentence.
why not PMC depositors?
All right, why not PMC depositors? Madan Sabnavis, Chief Economist at Care Ratings. Your first punch, 1 minute to make your first points. Go ahead.
No, in fact, I think the Yes Bank episode actually shows very clearly that the problems of NPAs in the banking system are not yet over. It started off with PSBs, then it went into the private banks, and just at a point of time where we felt that the problem was behind us and that 2021 will be a fresh year, I think this particular issue has come up. But I think the alacrity with which both the government and the RBI have reacted is very, very positive, because it sends the right signals to the public that we will not let any particular bank fail. So notwithstanding what went wrong and whether this should have been done earlier or not, I think what's really important is that the RBI and the government have shown that they will not let the bank fail, the deposit holders are not going to lose money, and more importantly, we have precedents to show that this was what was adopted by the government, whichever government it was, and the Reserve Bank of India, and there will be continuity here. So I think it restores a lot of confidence in the system.
All right, restores a lot of confidence in the system, the way the government has gone about announcing why it's done what it has. We'll debate that in a moment. Vipin Malik, former Director of the Reserve Bank of India. Your first 1 minute of arguments. Go ahead, Mr. Malik.
Yes, thank you, Shob. Besides the Director of RBI, I am also the Chairman of a rating company called Informatics.
Right, your time is going on.
Having
so
said
on.
so, okay. My impression is that the management, the top management was a colluded management. They have aggressive in lending, and the lending was without prudence, which cumulated into the loan losses of the bank. And as can be seen that they have invested in 22 asset management companies. 22 asset management companies of huge amount.
Yes.
So that all triggered into the liquidity crisis. Probably there is a liquidity crisis in the bank, and that, I mean, the liquidity which was 125% a year back and 100% is comfortable. And today that crisis have brought to a level of that they are unable to pay the deposits beyond 50,000.
All right. So obviously they ran out of money themselves and had to deal with poor loans. Let me begin the big fight and the debate part of the program by looking at the broader issues over here. To the layperson, Sanchita, it appears that this was a bank where if you went to the bank and its chief executives in the past, irrespective of what your credentials were, you were given a loan. And if you look at the companies named by the finance minister, the Anil Ambani Group, IL&FS, Vodafone, among others, these have been stressed companies for a while now. So therefore, was there an essential fault in this bank in not figuring out who they were giving money to?
Yes, absolutely. I would agree with you. The concern was on corporate governance. The concern was on very poor credit decisions, bad management, capital allocation, asset allocation, all of that. In fact, I'm not representing any firm or any organization over here. I can just say for myself, at least for my clients, all of us in this industry, a lot of us would know that the most well-managed equity funds and even the debt funds, the good ones, that is the well-managed ones, did not have an exposure to Yes Bank because it was all straws up in the air. A lot of people knew about the issue about Yes Bank for a while now. So this was impending for a while, and this was kept under monitoring. And I think now that the situation was that they were unable to do the capital infusion themselves, that the government stepped in to keep it as a going concern and made this move of reconstruction. So that was a well thought out move, in my opinion. It was managed.
The argument mentioned by the finance minister today was that, look, before 2014, this was a bank that took on all of these companies with stressed assets. From 2017 onwards, there was a process in place. The promoter had to leave. His shares had to be given up. And therefore, this is the time when the government needed to act. So the argument that the government didn't act or the RBI didn't act enough or fast enough doesn't stand. How would you respond?
This is merely looking for excuses for not doing enough. If you look at the growth of bank credit, compare the UPA 2 period with this governance period, bank growth slowed from about 17% to 9%. But Yes Bank's credit loan book continued to grow at 35%. So Yes Bank's loan book was growing 4 times the rate of bank credit growth. And as has been pointed out by Mr. Chidambaram among others, their loan book more than quadrupled in the last 4 years from 56,000 to 242,000. Interestingly enough, the year of demonetization, Yes Bank's loan book grew 55%, which is unheard of. And the corporate governance issues in this bank are well known. So the question is, she can keep talking about what happened in the past, but this story has been playing out in the last 5 years, and frankly, not enough has been done about it.
Right. But would you agree, Amitabh, that from 2017 onwards, enough was being done? That there was a member of the RBI who was put on the board of the company. By 2018, they decided that there would be no extension given to the promoter of this company. He was eased out of the company. So from 2017 onwards, would it have been possible to move any further or faster?
So these problems have been known well before 2017. And the assets of this bank, the loan book of this bank has continued to grow very rapidly even during this period. There was an asset quality review, and the bank was allowed to continue to evergreen its loans. So really, they have put in some systems in place, but they haven't been very effective.
Yeah. Mr. Sabnavis, would you like to respond to the point that it's not fast enough and it's not good enough to say that from 2017 there was somebody in the RBI looking into the functioning of this bank, that a lot needs to have been done much earlier on, and this was not done at all? Why should the simple depositor in the bank have to suffer now with all of these restrictions? Why wasn't action taken earlier on, and who is responsible?
No, actually, if you look at the case of any failed bank and you go back to the reasons as to why such a thing has happened, it will always go back to say that certain incorrect decisions were taken. Now, that could be because of improper judgment, or they could be governance issues. So I think it's not fair for me to say that whether it was a governance issue or the absence of proper judgment. But the fact is that at the end of the day, if the bank has these kind of problems which puts the money of depositors in jeopardy, I think definitely there is something wrong. Now, whether this should have been done before 2017 or after 2017, I think it's a matter of debate, and I think doesn't lead us anywhere. But the important part is that ever since we started
why
the
don't you
AQR, I
debate
think
this
these kind of
point?
things started
I'm just sorry to interrupt, but I really would like to press you on this point. Why don't we debate why action was not taken earlier on? If corporate governance, which is so central in a bank more than any other place, is the bedrock of how the system works, why should we not say from 2014 onwards, what was this bank doing and why wasn't there oversight?
No, I would like to think that give the benefit of doubt to the Reserve Bank of India, because I think whenever these decisions are taken, the proper authority is the central bank. So I think it was the Reserve Bank of India which decided to intervene at whatever point of time. And at that point of time, you change the management, you get your own person on the board of directors, and you try to bring about the changes which haven't quite worked out. So I think for any kind of a failed bank or any kind of a failed organization, I think it's very easy for us to say that this should have been done earlier. Yes, if things were done earlier, probably the problem would have happened earlier. But we should remember at that particular point of time, we had similar kind of problems in a number of public sector banks, some other private sector banks too. So just pinpointing saying why was it not done for Yes Bank at that particular point of time may sound very intelligent today. But I think we have followed the due process which has been followed by the central bank and today by the government. And I think as long as they're addressing the issues, I think that should be fairly okay for the time being at least.
Okay, Mr. Malik, the other way of looking at it is that we have a systemic problem as far as the RBI / the government at some level chooses to intervene when a bank is failing. We've had the disastrous PNB situation, we've had the disastrous Maharashtra Cooperative Bank situation, and now we've got Yes Bank, one of the largest banks in the country, in this situation. So is it enough for us to say that, look, the RBI is acting now, the SBI is going to be involved, the government has been moving in and therefore things will become okay? Or is it time for us to understand that the process of oversight in this country for 3 consecutive banks has been awful?
Mr. Som, any institution which is doing a shadow banking, and when I say shadow banking, that they do certain things outside their books, or they are window dressing their balance sheets, which are audited by statutory auditors, and which there are less qualifications or no notes, and which has a board which is, if you see the board, it is one of the most competent board. RBI has to believe all those things. Only when certain discoveries are made, and in this case probably the discoveries were made when the shareholders who were family members, they started complaining, and that is why the RBI started looking into that. So blaming the regulator where there is a very systematic fraud, it is very easy, but when you see when a regulator starts into a day-to-day transactions regulating, then it means that all the statutory auditors or internal inspection reports or internal audits, they are all fruitless. After all, regulator believes on those reports. So do you mean to say that Reserve Bank should put few officers to every bank to see that if there is a fraud is happening or not?
All right.
No,
so independence in the
it
working of banks is something that you point out. Mr. Gurcharan Das joins us as well. Good evening, sir. If you look at Yes Bank, stressed corporates were given loans, governance issues, weak compliance culture, wrong asset classification, risky credit decisions, allegations of insider trading, all words used by the finance minister earlier today. Right. What we have been debating is accountability in this entire situation. And the point mentioned by Mr. Malik is that there is only so much that the RBI can do. They cannot monitor the day-to-day or the month-to-month running of banks. But where does that leave the common depositor in a situation like this, when you've got banks evidently out of control?
Well, that's a very good question. And the fact is, depositors are safe in this case.
Yes.
I don't think we have any problem. The depositors are safe, the employees are safe, so the vulnerable sections are all right. And in fact, investors are safe because they have been bailed out by the state, looks like they have been bailed out by State Bank. And in fact, that's a moral hazard, because investor capital, equity capital is risk capital, and you should not be bailing out risk capital. But this was it's a systemic risk. So you can understand why the government has taken this risk. I think now I'll answer your question, but the key point, which I don't know if anybody has mentioned so far, is that State Bank and Reserve Bank should come to some kind of agreement to make sure that the tier 1, tier 2 capital takes a haircut.
Right.
Now, the reality is that that's where, to bring this bank to health, everybody has to take a haircut. But particularly, I think in this case, you can justify, because it is risk capital.
Right.
They risk the capital, and they are the ones. They are institutions mostly, and I think if you do that, and if you can sort of ring fence the toxic loans, particularly, I think you can justify State Bank taking over and it becoming a healthy
Is that all right?
business.
Ring fence the bad loans and use somebody else's money essentially to save this bank. I'll come to you next. Yes.
So exactly, Mr. Das is right. This is risk capital that the investors of Yes Bank took the risk. But who is bailing them out? It is those who invested in the State Bank of India. And that includes millions of Indians who through mutual funds have invested in the State Bank of India or even directly. It's entirely defensible to bail out the depositors. But to use a bank, just because it's owned by the state, majority owned by the state, to penalize the people who've invested in that bank, to bail out this bank, I think is wrong and should not be done.
Mr. Bhattacharya.
You see, I have been hearing a lot of singing of praise as if whatever has happened good, RBI has done good, central government has good, everybody is safe. What is shocking me is total insensitivity to the plight of a common depositor.
Yes.
And who is going to bail out?
Yes.
State Bank of India, milking cow. In India, in private sector, it's all privatize the profit in your pocket and nationalize the loss. And when you nationalize the loss, who takes the hit? State Bank of India's balance sheet takes a hit. LIC's balance sheet takes a hit. Why should the government not compensate State Bank of India and LIC? Why should it happen like that? State Bank of India is the largest national instrument for India's socio-economic development. India's growth rate is critically important and inextricably linked with the health of State Bank of India. I do not accept as to why the State Bank of India and LIC and all these massive assets of India, they are deliberately being weakened financially. This must stop.
So
at
Yes
some
Bank should be
stage.
allowed to collapse. So
You
Yes
see,
Bank should be allowed to
today
collapse.
India's banking industry is 240 trillion rupees.
Yep.
India's GDP is less than that. In the recent budget, 2020-21, the GDP has been estimated at 225 trillion.
Right.
People at the policy level, they are missing the enormity of the loss of confidence, and it will have a cascading effect.
Okay.
Yes Bank is a small bank
Right.
in terms of India's macro scenario. But why should the government from its exchequer, if it is using State Bank of India to bail out, why should State Bank of India not be capitalized to the same extent?
Mr. Das,
Only
Well, this
then
was
government
precisely
realized.
the point. I mean, he's making a very good point. In fact, the bigger risk here is that in future, there will be distrust created against private banks.
So the
And
SBI
private
route is
banks
not
have
the
been-
right route.
I beg your pardon?
He's made the point that the SBI route is colossally wrong. You spoke about ring fencing
Yes.
poor assets or poor loans and then working around
Yeah.
that. Who would do that? Who would fund that?
Yeah, I want to make this point that where I disagree with him is that ultimately it's the same money, in the sense that it is, in the one case it's taxpayers' money, and the other case, State Bank is owned by the state. And so ultimately it's the same kind. Even ring fencing what I was talking about, it will be the same money.
Not fully owned by the state.
Exactly. The State Bank is. I mean, State Bank is a good, high-performing organization, and we are proud of it. What I'm worried about is that there are very good private banks also now, which will carry the stain of this situation. And that would be unfair in a country where we still have not sold the market. In other words, people do not know the difference still between being pro-market and pro-business.
You believe that this bank needs to be bailed out?
I think it has to be. I think the systemic failure of Yes Bank would have horrendous implications on
never in India's history, I think, in the last 30 years, certainly post the economy opening up in the early 90s, has a bank been allowed to go under. A big bank, smaller banks have failed. But then where does this process stop? Where does the government say that, look, we cannot be involved in bailing out a bank? It's poor economics.
No, it does not stop. It does not stop with any country, any economy in the world. If you were to see Bear Stearns case in US, if you were to see Lehman Brothers, if you were to see the lesson US learned after the Lehman collapsed and the systemic risk it presented was humongous. In India, we have close to 27 PSU banks, 21 private sector banks, 49 foreign banks, 56 rural regional banks, 1,546 urban cooperative banks, 94,000 plus rural cooperative banks. That's the level of banking and financial services that we are talking in India. I do not agree on the point that Yes Bank is small. It is not. It is a huge bank. It's called almost 3 lakh crore book size. Allowing something of that nature to fail and not allowing SBI to infuse capital into it would leave the depositors where? This was done of saving a private sector enterprise to bail out small depositors. The government could have done the same thing even in IL&FS, but that's institutional money versus public money. They took a very hard line and did not do that, allowing IL&FS to go down, and we know what happened. There was a credit crisis of magnanimous proportion which hit Indian economics after that.
Mr. Sabnavis, again, just from the standpoint of the common depositor who cannot withdraw more than 50,000 rupees, and people who would perhaps be also be looking at the Maharashtra Cooperative Bank, important to look at a couple of differences. How the Yes Bank failure is different from PMC Bank. The RBI moratorium for Yes Bank is 30 days. The government says it will be sorted out within that time period. The SBI is being involved. The RBI moratorium for PMC Bank at least 6 months or more. The Yes Bank withdrawal limit from the very onset, 50,000 rupees. The initial PMC Bank withdrawal limit was 1,000 rupees. It went up to 25,000. It's now back at 50,000 rupees. But in the case of a bank failing, is this not an example of how there are different ways in which the RBI intervenes in different cases? And then again, from the standpoint of the depositor, is that fair?
No, actually, if you look at the two cases, I think there is a slight difference, because if you're looking at Yes Bank, the sheer size of it is quite different. The ramifications in case of failure is much larger than that of PMC. I think that's the reason why there's been differential treatment. Now, I would just like to comment on the other discussion which is just going on about whether SBI should be bailing out. Now, I would tend to think that, see, all of us agree that the deposit holders should be saved. Now, if they have to be saved, there has to be intervention. If there is government intervention, whether it comes from SBI or what Mr. Gurcharan Das said, it comes through the government, it's one and the same thing. So I think we should not get into it saying that whether the SBI should be used to bail out such kind of banks. Since we all agree that the deposit holders need to be bailed out, money has to come in from somewhere. If it's coming from either SBI or the government, I think that's good enough. And as far as this other issue which you've said, I think the two banks are quite different. And I think the RBI has also been learning by these experiences that after PMC, if you're going to keep just 5,000 or 10,000, it could create more havoc, and therefore they've kept a shorter time period. So definitely there are certain lessons which I've learned from PMC which are being used out here, and therefore we have a different yardstick.
Mr. Bhattacharya, let's just look at the RBI's restructuring plan. I know you disagree with it, but I wanted to get more of your thoughts on what is going to happen now.
I disagree. I may agree.
You seem to suggest the SBI investing is a bad idea, which is what your last argument was.
I think I have not, either I have not made myself clear or it has not been understood properly. I said that if you are using the State Bank of India route
Sure.
to bail out,
Yes.
because the depositors will have to be bailed out. The question is who pays the money?
Sure.
Huh?
Sure.
So, therefore, State Bank must not be compelled to pay the money. That was my point. Number one. Either Yes Bank shareholders pay, Yes Bank pays for the massive failure of management, or Vishnu, just permit me to state, or central government under whose nose repeatedly these banks are failing. You forget BJP Congress. I am not on BJP Congress. It has happened even in the past. And my learned friend told me it's a big bang. The balance sheet of 3 lakh crore means 3 trillion. 3. And India's total balance sheet of banks is 240.
Right.
So, Yes Bank is 3 out of 240, which is about 1% of India's banking industry. So, it is not a big bang by any standard. Even by private sector standard, it is number 5.
Right.
So, my respectful submission to the policy makers is, you must bail out every hapless depositor on whose money the entire industry is running. Today, you are not doing anything for PMC Bank.
Right.
And you are doing everything for...
And common depositors are not insured properly in this country to begin with.
Vishnu, do we keep money to see that my money is insured? It's a faith.
Okay, so one second.
It's a trust. That trust must be sustained.
I'll come back to you. I was asking him this question, but he's elaborated on his earlier point. Well appreciated. But let's look at what the RBI's restructuring plan for Yes Bank is. The SBI will invest and get a 49% stake. They cannot reduce below 26% for a period of 3 years. A new board will take over the running of Yes Bank, I believe, within that period of 30 days. Deposits and liabilities will continue as before. No change in offices or branches. Employment and salaries for staff is assured for at least 1 year. I'd like to get your thoughts before I come across to Amitabh on this.
My thoughts?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So, this is why I was supporting Mr. Bhattacharya in some ways by suggesting that let's make the deal sweeter for State Bank. If you can get tier 1, tier 2 to capital to take a haircut, then they got a much better deal. The State Bank has got a much healthier bank which they can grow into something a nice running business, because actually we have been down on Yes Bank, but it has a lot of positive features as well. So and
what positive features does a bank which has been accused of insider trading and all of these horrible things have?
I mean, we are looking at just the negative part, and those are the negatives.
Very large number of negatives.
I mean, it's a bloody fraud. This is absolutely true. I mean, what Rana Kapoor in the swashbuckling maverick, he was taking insane risks in running this bank to the ground and then selling his shares and leaving us with a huge mess as a country. And for me, much damaging to the growing private industry, banking industry. The thing though is that it has 1,200 branches. It has it has certain disciplines. You see, it was a one-man show, and the things that he did. But on the ground, there are a lot of people who were very satisfied with the service.
That was the promise of the bank when it was set up. That
So I think the State Bank will get a
Okay,
good
so one moment,
deal.
Amitabh, come in over here before I go across to Mr. Malik. Yes.
So, there's been a policy effort by this government, unfortunately, at the expense of minority shareholders. And keep in mind, most of the people watching this program who invest are minority shareholders. Yes. Whether it's ONGC, whether it's LIC, not directly through the equity route, but broadly similar, whether it is, the PPF. Again, the government has been raiding these stocks of public money to bail out various, to fill patches in the budget deficit and so on. I don't think it's correct to say that SBI bailing out this thing is the same as the government. SBI is only 60% government owned. 40% of it is owned by foreign investors and Indian domestic investors. And keep in mind that the government has a very ambitious disinvestment target in the coming year. So if you start penalizing minority shareholders in this manner, they're less likely to invest in your companies. So you have to treat them with respect and treat them fairly, and then you'll be able to achieve your disinvestment targets.
Yeah. Mr. Malik, the plan of the RBI and the SBI to invest, why would the SBI want to invest in the first place in Yes Bank? What exactly is the value of Yes Bank in the state that it's in with all of these dodgy loans? Why would it be attractive to SBI in your opinion?
Well, let me tell you that this bank's strength also, that it has a cash and bank balances with the Reserve Bank of India of 11,000 crores. It has a cash and bank balances at money and call notice of 16,000 crores. It has a government securities which are approximately to 40,000 crores. 40, 11, 16, 56, 10, 76,000 crores is a straightaway asset size with a net worth of 35,000 crores. I don't think that if there is a correct valuation of the bank taken by the State Bank of India, I don't know what valuation they are investing, but if the valuation is correct, it is a good investment by the State Bank of India, and ultimately which will give them a huge value when they will ultimately sell to a third party or an investor.
Sanchita, you had a point on this?
It's a good decision. It's a good decision and a very prudent decision taken by Reserve Bank and the government.
Okay.
Yeah, I was about to say the same point. I agree with him wholeheartedly. So vis-a-vis this conversation going towards direct taxpayers' money, vis-a-vis a going concern, a business concern. So a business concern with a certain amount of net worth at a distress valuation is being picked up by SBI. So going forward, if we were to see this ₹2 plus ₹8 premium that SBI is paying for it, if we were to sharpen that down to day 0, most likely they will in future months go ahead with a QIP and get more institutional investors to come on board at that point in time. So I would see this as a going concern. The government managed to avert the crisis. They seemed to take care of the depositors' interests because this was wholeheartedly done for the depositors' interests. When he was talking about equity shareholders, for example, I think the government gave enough time to Yes Bank to go to offshore investors. They had a new CEO who came in. There were plans of $2 billion of capital. Yeah, they failed that,
and in November 2019, it was a no-go. That's what the minister said.
So they failed. So small shareholders cannot say that we were not given a chance to make money on the share that we hold, right? Why didn't Yes Bank, for example, approach a private equity firm? Why didn't they go out, look for investors? They were given that opportunity. They failed. Hence, the government stepped in. And I think SBI taking over Yes Bank at a distressed valuation is a good move. It will profit SBI in the longer term. They'll also get huge tax breaks on the impairments. And going forward, I think what Mr. Gurcharan Das was mentioning, I think Tier 1 capital has already been marked down to 0. Tier 2 is what we are debating on.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make one point that she made, that in passing, that actually it could have been sold before the government had to step in, which is to say that if the foreign investor had been given the same kind of choice that the State Bank has been given. In other words, the reason why the foreign investors were shy was because of the SEBI rule of the floor price, a floor price which was related to the market price. Now, if the foreign investor is told that, my God, you can get it at a distressed value, it would have been something. So this would have required guts. I mean, for SEBI and the finance ministry to say, well, look, we are saving the system here, and we are in order to save the system, we are going to do this and do it transparently, that we are bending this rule for once. I think it could have been sold.
Yes.
Vishnu, may I just mention, the central point, according to me, is there has been an enormous erosion of wealth, enormous, astronomical. Now, the question is, who pays for it? Is it the bank depositors? Is it those who have caused the erosion of wealth? Is it the State Bank of India? Or is it the regulators and the central government who have allowed the situation to come to such a pass that we are only hoping that things are never so bad that it can't get even worse? So, therefore, the central issue, which with the greatest of respect to all of my distinguished panelists here, I would like to submit is, who pays for this enormous erosion of assets?
So, how do you respond to the argument that, look, the RBI has been involved from 2017 onwards, SEBI has been involved in this bank, there are inquiries which are being done even at the level of the CBI on the allegations
RBI
of
has
insider
taken
trading.
a correct action. I am not questioning what RBI has done.
Could the RBI have worked faster?
I am only questioning who pays for it. It is an enormous, massive failure. In a way, it is a fraud.
Right.
It is a fraud on the entire banking system.
Okay.
Who has caused the fraud?
Right. So, who should pay?
Who should pay?
So, you tell me, you tell us, if you do not agree with our sort of.
I mean, those who have done the fraud, they should pay.
Who?
Those who have done this fraud, those who have allowed the situation to such a pass.
So, tell us
now,
how?
do you mean to
Who?
say
So they would
a bank depositor will pay?
They would be paid in a criminal, they would
No,
pay
so
back in
who
a
will
criminal
pay?
case and go to jail.
Do you mean to say a bank depositor will pay? A small bank depositor, and you say it's insured up to 1 lakh, 3 lakh, 5 lakhs. What about those millions
that's
and
the key
billions?
question.
You are making the bank depositor the victim.
He's asked the main question.
Yeah.
1 minute, Mr. Sabnavez, who pays? That's the key point over here. Why should common depositors or others, or those who put their money into the State Bank of India or elsewhere, be the people paying? So, who pays?
No, ultimately we are saying we are trying to look out for bailing out of certain deposit holders of Yes Bank. Now, I think if we are going to get into this question of saying that nobody should be paying for it, then I think there will be no solution. Because finally the thing is that even if suppose let's assume that the government says that I'm going to put 10,000 crores in the budget, then we can come up on this panel and again say that why should my tax money go to help out Yes Bank. So I think we should look at the fact that, see, the regulators, the government have worked towards getting a kind of a solution. Let's appreciate that rather than trying to apportion the blame and say that nobody pays. But let's remember it's a zero-sum game. Yeah? If we have to bail out the deposit holders of Yes Bank, somebody will have to pay for it, the government will have to pay for it. And as I mentioned, if tomorrow the government puts the money, all of us can come here and say, why should my tax go for paying out for a failure?
All right, you need to be pragmatic. That's your point.
Yes, I think that's the key point.
1 moment. Sanchita first, then Amitabh. Yes.
Yes, in this case, I have a very short and crisp answer. The shareholders pay and the 81 bond holders, the perp bond holders pay. Depositors will not pay unless the bank goes belly up. In this case, the bank is not going belly up. It's a going concern. So, this was done in a move to save the depositors.
Yeah.
And the people who are paying for this are the equity shareholders and the perp bond holders. Simple as that.
Amitabh?
So, we've talked a lot about who should bail it out and so on. But I want to underline one point. The finance minister said that this bank has been under surveillance since 2017.
Yes.
In 2017-18, their deposits, their loan book went up 55%. So, this is the highest they grew. So, if they were under surveillance and monitoring, why are they growing at 55%? In the most recent year we have numbers for, they grew at 20-25%. So, what kind of a monitoring is this? That you flagged all the corporate governance problems, you flagged all the issues, and you're allowing this bank to accelerate rather than decelerate its loan book growth.
No, that really is a key point. Mr. Malik, would you venture a guess into what happened where despite the involvement of the RBI, you've seen this bank growing in this manner? Doesn't this raise questions on how on earth was it growing when it's under such tight scrutiny?
Vishnu, Reserve Bank is the lenders of the last resort. It has to protect the customers, it has to protect the depositors, it has to protect the employees, it has to protect the economy as a whole. Any failure of Yes Bank will have a conjunctivitis disease to all the banking sector if it would not have been protected. So I think the government and the Reserve Bank has done correctly. It is a temporary phase, and you will see to it that huge money will be made by the State Bank of India.
Sir, a former RBI deputy governor was put on the board of Yes Bank in 2018 onwards, at a time when the size of its exposure kept going up. So when Amitabh asks the question,
Yeah.
what was perhaps this gentleman doing, how would one answer?
Well, that you raise the question to Mr. Gandhi only, that what was he doing or not doing, or whether he was sending the reports internally to Reserve Bank, and that is why Reserve Bank has come to that conclusion.
No, but that really brings us back to where this all started.
You see, there is
and to which, again, Mr. Sabnavis, this is what my first question really was, that why should we not hold some people within the RBI also accountable for a delay in answering questions? This is not the only bank. There's been the Maharashtra Cooperative Bank. There's been that disaster at PNB Bank as well. This has now taken place. All along, there is a process of oversight which exists at so many levels. So therefore, is the RBI acting fast enough? Or do we expect a scenario where people will be told, sorry, from tomorrow you can't withdraw more than so much money?
Vishnu?
No, actually the thing is that the question which you raised is pertinent, because I think for every particular such failure, one can always go back and say that what was the regulator doing, and should the regulator have taken certain signals earlier. So I think what's more important is that other regulators, I think at least from what I remember for something which was mentioned in the economic survey, that for the NBFCs there are certain early warning signals which have been created. Maybe we should be having something like this for the banks, like the issue which you just raised, saying that if Yes Bank did show something like 50% increase in their loan book at the time of demonetization, then the flag should have been raised. I think none of us actually raised the flag at that particular point of time. No. But today it sounds right that, okay, somebody should have seen that something was going wrong. So I think the way to go about is that the regulators should actually sort of strengthen their own processes of supervision and make sure that you're able to track these particular indicators, come up with certain objective kind of models where you're able to flag problems when they arise, so that they don't get repeated in future.
Okay, I'm going to take a short...
I think that's all that I can say on this.
I'd like to thank all of you very much for joining us. This part of the program is done, the debate is done, the big fight is over. And the reason is, I think that the concerns of the depositors, the people who are standing outside banks in various parts of the country today and saying, hello, when do I get access to my funds? Withdrawing 50,000 rupees isn't going to take me through the rest of this month. I have payments to make, EMIs to pay. What are those people saying? We have a special report.
That we were reporting, we were seeing people lining up outside branches of Yes Bank, and right now also, although the bank is closed, but we have some depositors. We could manage to talk to them. But before I go across to them, the sentiment which was there on ground was it was a mixed feeling, where there were a group of depositors who believe that yes, government will be doing something, government will step up, and they will not let a commercial bank as big as Yes Bank to default, and government will be taking certain measures, and they had the confidence. But on the other side, there were also a few people who were completely disappointed, and they were concerned and even angry as to this has happened after the PMC Bank episode, and in fact they were also worried that what will happen to their money, because there are current account, saving account, and even salaried account which are there in Yes Bank, and people were asking that yes, even if this moratorium is for a period of 30 days, but what after 30 days? What is the guarantee that after 30 days the bank will start functioning once again? So what is the guarantee for that? What is the guarantee of our money? And even though there are certain exemptions such as medical emergency or even higher education or marriages, but what if we don't want any of this and we just want to go out and travel? Will we be getting our money? There is no, there is a limitation of 50,000. So what about that? If we want to even take if we want to travel abroad or even anywhere in the country, so a lot of people and a lot of concerns and a lot of questions. So let's just talk to a few depositors who are here with us. Sir, आप हमें बताएं कि आप करते क्या है और क्या क्या दिक्कतों का सामना करना पड़ा।
हमारा स्टेशनरी का बिजनेस है मैडम, और हम लोग को सामने पेमेंट देने के लिए पेमेंट अभी 50,000 खाली मिल रहा है। हम लोग को 1,86,000 RTG करने का था तो 50,000 खाली ओनली पर मिल रहा है, और हम लोग को GST पहले भरना पड़ता है और पेमेंट बाद में आता है, तो भी हमको दिक्कत होती है। बैंक बंद हुआ उसके हिसाब से, और पब्लिक को पैसा भी हम लोग नहीं दे सकते। हमारा फर्स्ट नंबर है, उसको पेमेंट भी नहीं दे सकते हैं सामने पार्टी को। इसके लिए हमको सामने माल भी नहीं मिलेगा, हमारा नाम भी खराब होता है इसके वजह से। तो हम लोग दो अकाउंट भी नहीं खोलते, एक ही अकाउंट रखते हैं, क्योंकि गवर्नमेंट ने कायदा कर दिया है कि आधार कार्ड लिंक करो, वो लिंक करो। सब लिंक करने के बाद भी हम लोग को ऐसा परेशान करने में आएगा तो हम लोग कैसे काम कर पाएंगे।
और आपका कितना पैसा अटका होगा इस बैंक में?
इसमें 5-6 लाख रुपया अभी अटका हुआ है हमारा, और दूसरा पेमेंट भी RTG से आया हुआ है कुछ, तो 8-10 लाख रुपये टोटल होगा।
आप बताएं आपका कौन सा अकाउंट है यहाँ पे?
करंट अकाउंट।
करंट अकाउंट है। आप क्या बिजनेस करते हैं?
ये स्टेशनरी का सप्लाई का है।
और आपका वीकली डिमांड कितना होता है? आपका ट्रांजैक्शन कितने का रहता है? आपको किन चीज़ों के लिए आपको लगता है कि सिर्फ 50,000 की लिमिट नहीं होनी चाहिए या उससे ज़्यादा आपकी डिमांड?
बिजनेस जो अकाउंट है होल्डर है उनके लिए कम से कम 3 से 4 लाख होनी चाहिए उन लोग को लिमिट, तभी वो लोग मैनेज कर पाएंगे। वो भी हफ्ते का 3 से 4 लाख उनका क्रेडिट होना चाहिए, लिमिट देना चाहिए सरकार को। ऐसा जो बैंक का जो अथॉरिटी है उसको देना चाहिए, तो नहीं तो एकदम बोलेगा तो एकदम हम लोग एकदम गिर जाएगा अर्थव्यवस्था से। अभी सामने हम लोग का नाम भी खराब होएगा, तो सामने पार्टी को पैसा नहीं मिलेगा तो माल कहाँ देगा, तो कहाँ से हम लोग बेचेगा। एकदम से बोलेगा तो फिर हम लोग 0 पॉइंट पे चले जाएंगे।
आपने क्या आज पैसे निकाले?
हाँ निकाले, 50,000 के आसपास निकाले। 50,000
तो आपने भी निकाले?
हाँ 50,000 निकाले।
तो आपको लगता है अभी इन 50,000 का आपको कितना तक
काम नहीं चलेगा? 50,000 का लिए एक दिन भी काम नहीं चलेगा हमारा, क्योंकि कैश में इतना में माल आता है हमारा। तो हम लोग इसमें RTG करके माल मंगाते थे, आज कैश में इतना माल लिया है, हम 80-90 का माल लिया हुआ है, तो अभी हमारे पास कुछ हाथ में बचता ही नहीं है पैसा। समझो हम लोग माल सब हमको उधारी में देना पड़ता है, उसके बाद पेमेंट आता ही नहीं है। पेमेंट आने के बाद ऐसा होता है, पेमेंट आया तो मार्केट में।